You have changing kind of people you're marketing to, changing profile of the customers, but also in some cases different target kind of audiences, whether it's businesses or customers. So maybe could you talk a little bit first about how you're contending with that at Humana?
Sure. Yeah. Good morning, everybody. I'm Jody Bilney, as Gotti mentioned, from Humana. Humana is a health insurance company, your favorite type of company, because you all love your health insurers, I'm sure, right? Health insurance, we appreciate Congress because they're the only ones whose opinion consumers hold lower than they do ours. So actually, so what we are in the midst of in health insurance right now, and Humana specifically is at the forefront of this, is a transition to what we call retailization of healthcare. Healthcare right now is, as you all have experienced, is actually run in a very sort of siloed manner where we intercept consumers at our convenience to talk with them about what we want to talk about, and we don't know what happened before or what might happen next. And so it was very much on our terms, using terms we understand that consumers didn't understand and don't understand. They tend to interact with us when they're vulnerable because something has probably gone wrong. It's why they're interacting with the healthcare system in the first place. And so with all of that in mind, and we were running our company, and many do in that way, what we've attempted to do and are in the process of doing is fundamentally shifting and reorienting and re-architecting the consumer experience longitudinally and making sure that we are presenting ourselves to members in a way that has the proper understanding of what their circumstances are, what happened before, and what should and might happen next, and how we can help them with that, and that we're dealing with them with the right sort of empathy. We're being respectful and using language that they understand. So the retailization of healthcare is what we're in the midst of. And how many of you have some sort of device on right now that's tracking steps, or any of you? I mean, yeah, exactly. So how informed you all are about your health, how engaged you are with your health, that it's fundamentally changing, and as an industry and Humana as a company is working on that very hard every single day because people are engaged differently. Last note I'll make is that over 70%, we're about $54 billion, about 50,000 associates work at Humana, and about 70% of that revenue is generated with people who are 65 and older. So a really interesting group, and the oldest boomers now are 70 this year. And so a 70-year-old is actually quite different, has been living with the internet, and is actually quite different than someone who is 75 or even 80. And so as the boomers move through and into our industry, they're bringing a whole new mindset and a whole set of expectations that are really quite different than those that preceded them.
Thank you. And Connie, you folks have you've kind of rebranded a little bit, and you're changing a little bit your target for your marketing as well, and kind of what you want to achieve with it. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, 2 weeks ago, we took a bold step. We not only changed our name, but we changed our game. And when I talk about changing the game, it's all rooted in the customer. It's about delivering a different experience, an experience that meets people where they are, that's relevant to people in the 5 generations that we're serving simultaneously. And for the first time in a long time, the younger generation, the millennials in particular, really like their parents and really like their grandparents. So they're talking together. You know, it's ironic that we're up here together, Jody and I on the stage, because health and wealth create some of the greatest stresses that exist as people go through a lifetime. And when you say the word retirement, many people that are Gen X, Gen Y, they're not thinking about it in the same way, particularly our millennials. I mean, if you think about it, it's relevant because they're entering a state where they don't trust traditional institutions. They've watched their parents go up and down like yo-yos for the last several years through the ups and downs of the market. They're looking at their grandparents who actually are living off of the old pension plan, which is lifetime income, wondering about that. and not really sure that things like Social Security and other things are going to be there for them in a perpetual low interest rate environment. So if you think about how they think, and most importantly, how they feel, and what their state of mind is as they make decisions in life, it affects not only their financial well-being, but every single industry that you all represent, because they're changing habits in a way that no other generation has. And when you blend 5 of them together and you step back as a financial services company, you have to really rethink and reimagine what that experience is like and how to meet each and every one of those individuals in each of those 5 generations in a relevant way to get them engaged. So our whole rebranding has been about 3 core simple principles. Get radically simple so that we don't intimidate or make you feel bad because you don't really understand what you're reading or what you should do and what financial decisions you make. Meet you where you are and recognize that every individual defines success in a different way, and that will change dozens of times in a lifetime, depending on where you are and who you are and what your circumstances are, and truly become an engaged ally. And that is truly the genesis behind this brand transformation. It's moving to truly an individualized or personalized engagement brand.
And Joseph, I want to kind of introduce a little bit of what you do at the MIT Age Lab. You conduct research and advise companies on kind of the changing kind of consumer behavior across generations, right?
Yeah, unlike my colleagues here, I get paid to watch. You guys have to do the work.
Right.
Most of you have to do the work. So yes, the Age Lab looks across the lifespan of the different generations. I get a kick out of the fact that most of you in this room have this incredible amount of effort going into the millennials or Gen Y strategy, and I work with them every day as staff, students, and the like. But you know what's really funny? The millennials are just so yesterday. Gen Z is already in my classroom and already in the workforce. By the way, I don't know which one of you came up with Gen Z, but we just ran out of alphabet. Does this mean this is it? We're done? Over the years, we've worked with the auto industry. I've worked with Connie for years at TIA and health and wealth industries. And I've got a couple observations I want to share with you, hopefully to get some provocative conversation. One, the consumer of any age is now what I call Gen X. That is Gen EX. That is generation expectation. They expect to live longer, better at any age. That they believe there's not going to be a product or a service that they want you to push. They want a solution to what they're doing. That's why I was really happy to hear in the last panel the notion of a consumer journey. Not your widget, not your service, but give me a solution. The second thing, which is I think we all touch on, is all of you that raised your hand saying that you had some device that was monitoring you fitness-wise. The rest of you that did not raise your hands, you just didn't know the device that you have is monitoring you. Technology, the digital divide as we once knew it, it's gone, it's over. The bottom line is that even the 75-year-olds may not know how to build a computer, but there better be an app for that. We have socialized the customer. And I guess that's my third observation. Your competition is not your competition. The consumer today is totally shock-proof. They're comparing you not with another finance company or another health company or another food company. They're comparing their experience with you with every other experience in every other domain. The bad news is your consumer's older, they're tech savvy, they're reaching across the generations, and by the way, your job to excite and delight them just got a lot harder because they've seen it all.
Right. And I think as you've also put it, they have some of these customers, because they have all of that, they're kind of more empowered, they have attitude.
Essentially, this is a customer with attitude,
right.
Whereas before it was like, hey, this is neat, what do you think? And the answer is now, November it'll be better.
They're not passive at this point. And so how do you guys deal with that? How are you managing that? And this is getting closer to our topic, is the audience, is the customer always right? Is your audience always
right? Well, I can jump in and build on some of Joe's points too. In our industry, the customer is right in their intent, but not necessarily in their execution. So if you think about that as it relates to health, we all know what we should do or shouldn't do, but it isn't necessarily what we want to do or what we end up doing. And so, part of the struggles that people have then too is that they discount the value of the future. So if I take care of myself today, then I potentially won't have diabetes or have chronicities at that time, in the future. So, but that means I have to make a choice today. So in our industry, you make a purchase decision once a year, but we have a chance to try to influence them every day, to make a choice every day. So we have a chance to build a relationship with them every day, to try to influence their behaviors, even though they only purchase once a year. So the dynamics of that are really sort of interesting. It's why then devices become important, and why, because it's a way for us to have, it's a tool for us to be able to have a relationship with them and to get to interact. And you were exactly right, though, too, Joe. We find out with our seniors, the way they stay in touch with their family, they FaceTime all the time. It is with their grandkids. It's how they stay current. It's how they stay contemporary. And frankly, it's how they stay relevant, and it helps them stay healthy also. So it's the blurring between the generations is real. The way they interact is completely different than it was before. And I think that we had some predispositions that years ago were that seniors didn't use technology. It's just absolutely not right, fundamentally not right.
It's amazing how much the grandparents have actually now become links across the generations, skipping many of us in the middle.
Well, that's exactly what we've seen. We've seen that the grandparents are actually the greatest influence on Gen Y. They're going to their grandparents for advice because they're seeing the way they're living. And they also still like their parents, by the way, more so than my generation did, I must admit. But coming back to your earlier point on the, in the last panel, we talked about data. And boy, oh boy, I don't know about you, but I'm drowning in data. I have more data than I know what to do with. And so it's really not about the data. However, it's about the insights we draw from the data. And we used to do that one segment at a time looking across. Today, and at the foundation of this brand reimagination, I would tell you it's all about the journey, but the journey's made up of three-dimensional insights. It's name, rank, and serial number, all the basics, they still matter. It's how we think about people as they sit in common groups, male, female, age cohorts, things along those lines, because habits are different. It's bringing together behavioral data with what I'll call the core habit or results that we all have deep in our systems. We know how people have functioned in retirement for years. And as a unique retirement or a financial services company that really focuses on the nonprofit sector. So not everybody in America, but those people in higher education, government, health, and all nonprofits. You start to really look underneath these unique individuals and how they think and break them into categories. So you have name, rank, and serial number. You have male, female, gender data. You have generational data. And most importantly, you have psychological data. You get into behavioral concepts of not only what people do, but how they think, and more importantly, how they feel. Because if they have an interaction with your service, particularly things like planning for retirement or thinking about taxes, things like that, and they feel bad or they feel inadequate or they feel walking out of there that they're hopeless, you're going to set them backwards. So to get them engaged makes it even harder. So you combine all of those multi-dimensions into customer journeys, and you start to get insights around engagement that are very different than if you approached it from a classic segmentation principle.
You wanted to jump in?
If I could meld both ideas that Jody and Connie just had, we're doing a lot of work in machine learning in my lab on everything from car design to how people shop and pick finance and the like. One of the things I'm really concerned about is that big data does not substitute for big ideas. Right. Companies that win offer lifestyles. They offer that guidance on how to live healthy lives or how to save for the future. Big data is tactical. It will give you that little nudge moment as to which knob do I want on the car dashboard, or maybe should I have the cookie or should I have the apple? But it's not going to create a vision that's going to allow your customers to be excited and delighted saying, this company, this brand offers a lifestyle I want. Then you can fill in with the products and the little pieces of data.
Yeah, I completely agree. And that's where we get to the notion of engaged ally, because at the end of the day, we want lifetime engagement. because it's getting people on that path, getting them to feel good about the decisions they make that are going to get them better outcomes.
See, here's where this makes so much sense in our industry as well. So right now, we know that if we can help people, let me start with saying, our motives and interests are completely aligned with our members. And what I mean by that is if we can help them be healthier, then they're going to live a happier life. If we can help them be healthier, they're going to cost us less, and our company can grow. So our motives and interests are completely aligned. The trouble is that they think that they're in opposing directions. They think we make money when we say no, and so by definition they come into the relationship like this. That's not solved by data per se. That's an idea. There's a trust thing that has to be built there. There's some old-fashioned sort of marketing thinking that is fueled by data so that we can know we can offer solutions that are best for them, and we can help to understand them both based on both what we know and what we believe about them as well. If we can combine that with the ideas, that's where the power is. So it has to be both of these brought together.
It's unfortunate that the industry and the research behind it, of which I'm partly guilty, has really gotten to the point where I crunch, therefore I am, when in fact, really, we need to go back, and I would say in many cases, to marketing's real roots, which is, what's the compelling idea that I want to be part of that brand or that part of that experience?
Well, and I can tell you that it goes beyond the borders of your industry, because the most critical concern among people who are planning their financial future is health. It's health and wealth and how they work together. And what happens if I get sick? And by the way, among women who bear a massive burden in terms of thinking and caring for multi-generations and families, it's top of mind. And women are the least confident in making investment decisions, even though they control the vast majority of what I'll call cash flow. So you start to think across industries, and you start to think about the things that really bother them. I would say solving solutions means that your industry and my industry really have to come together, because they are married in the consumers' minds on what keeps them up at night.
Interesting. We have our first inaugural question from the app. I'm very excited about this.
There we go.
I think I'm going to give it to Joseph. It's what are the 5 generations?
What are the 5 generations? I see a number of you in the room. First off, by the way, I know we only have a few minutes, but frankly, we're doing also sloppy marketing. 80 million of anything can't be anything. So the idea that Gen Y, baby boomers, this is nonsense. But Gen Z, they're coming online. Generally, they're little teenage kids that are, by the way, in our lab, we have found are laughing at Generation Y, the millennials, because the millennials, everything's online, everything is social. And the Gen Zers are looking at them going, wait a minute, you actually touch your phone, you don't use voice, and wait a minute, you're not doing instant, you're leaving that stuff up in space forever? You're weird. So Gen Z is the teens to about 20 years old. Now this is the part that gets really funny. From 20 to 36, we're calling that the millennials. Tell me, really? Anything in common between a 36-year-old and a 20-year-old? But yet there's real strategy around that.
And also known as Gen Y.
And Gen Y, yeah. We mix them. Now, how many of you were born roughly between 1964 and 79? Okay, see, you're the most annoyed generation, because you're stuck with the baby boomers, that are the older ones. But basically, Gen X is the now middle management and upper management. You're controlling a lot of the decisions. You're looking at the kids behind you not working, and you're looking at the folks in front of you just not going away. The baby boomers, roughly 1946 to 64, again, 50-something to 70 years old. One of these characters is turning 70 every 7 to 8 seconds. Really, technically, I'm a baby boomer. I'm 54. But do I think I have anything in common with a 70-year-old? I've never wore a tie-dye shirt, I've never been in a VW van, and I really don't like Janis Joplin's music. So forget that. So you've got those two generations.
There's no accounting for taste.
And then, frankly, you've got the silence in World War II after that. But as you can see, our research indicates that, yes, there may be 5 generations in the workplace, in the health place, and in the marketplace. But really, if you want to understand the consumer, go back to your psychographics, your anthropology and sociology. What makes a generation is not your age, but your experience. And that generally happens between 17 and 22 in 5-year cohorts. What did I experience? What did I like? What colors did I appreciate when in the 80s were back again? What did I like then? It's not that you won't change, but those are, shall we say, those moments that you frame and evaluate everything else.
Actually, we missed one. We got to name one. What about the 0 to 15? Because a lot of the folks in this audience care about them too.
Z minus 1?
Z minus 1? I don't know. We're out of alphabet.
Yeah.
So now I guess there are
AA?
6 coming, fast.
Do we go to double A? I don't know about
No,
that.
no.
I think that's already taken.
Well, given that these, by the way, I'm very happy to hear that apparently we all love our parents and our grandparents. I just worked in China last, and so hearing about this great filial piety here was a great surprise.
So they're losing it in China. Did you notice there's actually a
Right.
law on the books that if you don't visit your grandparents once a month, they can take you to court? Figure that one.
Okay, then.
So, given one thing that you kind of touched on, everybody comes in at a different point with technology in terms of they have their experience also at whatever age, 17 to 22, maybe a little bit older, determines what way they use technology really more than, as you talked about with people, younger people using instant, like Snapchat or whatever. So what platforms do you recommend, or maybe I'll start with them and I'll go with you last, Joseph. How do you deal with engaging with your customer when, in different generations, one thing that we can say is that the platforms that they use might be different.
So let me start on that one, and I'm going to, if you don't mind, twist your question a little bit.
Please.
Because I'm going to take it from the tendencies in the financial services industry, highly, highly regulated. So what does that mean? That means a lawyer and a compliance person looks at every word you write, whether it's a tweet or whether it's no matter where it is. And that's the realities of this industry. So when I talked about the reimagination of TIA's brand, it was about getting radically simple. And getting radically simple meant making new partners in a different way with regulatory and compliance. We took 2,500 pages of content on the web, and we started there because that's the biggest channel, and burned them to the ground and created and came back with a very simple, very interactive way of communicating and collecting information at the same time and personalizing the experience on the web. So for me, it started there. But the principle isn't about the technology vehicle. It's about being radically simple and meeting people in a way that they feel good and they want to take that next step to engage. So I ask all of you, here's a little something to compare. Go out and pull up, that word annuity that we all hate? Everybody sort of says, ooh, annuities, what does that really mean? Go out, well, it really means a vehicle for lifetime income. And if you go out and you pull up any annuity page on pick your financial services player, go to the TIA.org news site, pull up annuities and compare, and you will get an idea of how far we had to go to reach the consumer so that they would feel good and begin to get engaged. So to me, it's not about platform.
Right.
It's about what you do with it.
I'm going to stop you there for a sec, because I realize, although I did take a question from the app, I haven't actually invited the floor to ask a question. And if you don't have a question right now, I'll come to you right after I get these panelists to very quickly answer this question. But is there anyone who wants to ask a question out there right now? Yes, here. Go ahead. Go ahead now. Oh, up here. Oh, sorry. And then I'm going to come back to this technology platforms question at the very end to finish up. So go ahead.
Hi, I have a question for you, sir. You talked about big data not replacing big ideas. I've noticed that corporate strategy across different industries and domains are moving very fast towards data-driven decision-making, and corporate strategy is pretty much being rebranded as data science. So what is your opinion on that? And basically, what's your opinion?
Data should absolutely drive decisions. Data can inform ideas, but it does not replace ideas. The notion that we can have data come up with a concept of what is a better way of living or a better product you can understand what people are doing in the moment, but if you really want to be a brand that excites and delights, understand what I'm doing and then come up with a great idea and have that data inform whether your hypothesis is actually working.
And by the way, that means adopt a culture of test and learn. Test and learn means you're not going to be successful all the time. And so that is critical to taking that journey with data and turning it into outcomes.
We have to be really careful we don't have data everywhere and not a drop of knowledge or imagination.
We have another question from the app. I'm going to give it to Jody. What role does your public relations team play in achieving your goals?
Do we have PR agencies and folks in the room asking that question? Actually, PR is a critical part of how we present ourselves to the marketplace. PR, like Connie's industry, in our industry, there is an intermingling with, it sits right between corporate affairs, which has relationships with Washington, critical relationships there, and marketing. And so in some days it pivots and works toward marketing, and some days it pivots and works, and it also has relationships with IR. So our PR function at Humana depends on the hour, depends on the day, depends on the topic, and we work obviously very hard on image and reputation management for the company overall, with the key constituents that I just mentioned, as well as the thought leadership for CEO and those sorts of things as well. So absolutely critical. And social media has taken PR to a whole new place with us. And social media, I'm going to pivot just slightly toward the question where you just were too. Social media, it's interesting. Before coming to healthcare, I was actually in the restaurant industry, sort of standard career pathing from restaurant industry into healthcare. And the role of social media when you're in the restaurant industry is actually when people delight in sharing their food. They take pictures of their food, they post it, they say, and when you order, you're going to get a filet, and maybe it's your birthday or anniversary, and you order it and you're excited, and it comes, and then you hear it being the sizzle as it's arriving, and it's placed in front of you, and you smell it, and then the anticipation when you cut into it, and then you see if the temperature is quite right, and then all of these emotions that are happening with that, and you share all of that. That's where I came from. When you are in the industry they're in now, social media tends to be the complaint channel of last resort. If you're so fed up that you can't get your claim processed or you are denied, then that's what shows up there. So the role of public relations, back to this question, and how people express themselves, is we really have to understand by platform that consumers choose to communicate with us, and with social media in different industries, the role is really actually quite different.
Let me just make a quick comment. I agree
we have
with
15 seconds.
everything you said, but we took our PR folks and our agency folks and blended them all together when we reimagined the whole campaign around this brand and put everybody in the room and made them as important in the creative process
Absolutely.
as advertising, as web. It's one team. So I don't look at them separately. It's one team, and they were more integral in many cases quarterbacking, because they're multi-channel, than even some of my traditional friends in traditional media.
Okay. Our agencies we actually have a thing internally, they're called the IAT. They call themselves the Integrated Agency Team. The agencies working together.
Joseph, I'm going to give you the last word because I know you had an interesting answer on this question of technology platforms. Which one to use?
Many companies ask, should they be social for one generation? Should they be online, snail mail, phone? The answer is yes, all of them.
Yep.
What we find is that whether you're a millennial or Gen Z or the oldest of the baby boomers, it's context that matters. As the issue gets more complex, as the decision becomes more risky, I want more touch points and more people on social, friends, and family to validate that decision. And by the way, I'll leave the last word with this. If you want to understand across the generations, spend your money looking across the generations, absolutely. But if you want people to make a decision, go out and understand and own the 47 to 57-year-old female. She's friends with Gen Z and Gen Y and probably even buying their stuff. She's caring for her house, and probably, if her partner doesn't have an oldest adult daughter, she's caring for more adult parents than she'd ever had children. She's your vector chief influencing officer,
and she controls the disposable income.
She's a chief purchasing officer,
And is living longer.
And she's the one that's more likely to be online doing research than anyone else.
You're right.
Well, we're going to leave on that note. Thank you so much to these panelists.
you.
I thought that was a great discussion.